Building your reference base and teaching your best customers to give testimonials on your behalf, whether they're solicited or unsolicited, is an absolute challenge, but critical to your success in sales. The first thing you have to know is who are your best customers, and of course, treat them well. We've talked a lot about your customers and how to act and how to be an ethical and moral sales professional throughout many lectures that I've given. And here is where it starts to culminate. Certainly, you want to treat your prospects well, be a good person, be on their side, represent them so they become a customer. But as I've detailed before, in the sales process, the final step in the selling process doesn't have an end date, and that's to service your customer. But of course, a lot of books and teachers, people who promote selling as a discipline, they don't talk about the servicing portion being this endless step. This is where it culminates. When you're servicing your customer, that means you can determine if they're a good customer or a poor customer. And of course, we can't just assume that every customer is going to be amazing or that we're going to treat them well. We, the team that supports them. So if you're the sales professional, you close a deal, you get a new customer, service is typically handed off. For execution, the creation of work product and the actual delivery of services is given to product experts, implementation experts, people who actually know the products inside and out, perhaps even have a hand in development of those products and those services, and they do the work that's promised. And the salesperson, unfortunately, tends to go away. But in this case, what I'm telling you is don't go away. And your priorities are going to shift. You're going to go from spending many hours a week trying to close the deal to just a few hours a month maintaining the relationship. And it gets less and less over time, but certainly you want to make sure that your customer is getting what you promised they would get. And so there's a lot of time that goes into it early on. And that's how you learn if they're great customers or not. Again, some of that falls on you and some of that falls on them, and some of that falls on your team who's executing. And as you've identified your best customers, you want to treat them well. And that goes well beyond visiting, sending them gifts, taking them out to dinner. Those are just opportunities to engage, but it's the deep conversations to find out if they feel satisfied that they're receiving the value they anticipated. And I think that you'll find that if you executed well up to this point, getting them as a customer, that more likely than not, they're going to be pretty pleased with what they got, because we're going to assume at this point that you've been a good sales professional. And this is where you teach them how to say what you want them to say if they were to be a reference for you against solicited or unsolicited request. And I don't mean you sit them down in a classroom environment and give them a script. In fact, we want to stay away from scripts as much as possible because we want to make it organic, genuine. And this happens when you've checked in with the customer many times to ensure they're getting what they thought they would be getting. That's how they learn what to say. In terms of managing the reference funnel, the referral funnel itself, it's a lot like a sales pipeline. You would prioritize who are your best referrals versus your worst referrals, right? We definitely don't want to engage a customer who's not going to go as a good referral. But also keep in mind that in an unsolicited sense, you may have some customers who are dissatisfied who will share with their broader community about how they're not getting the value they anticipated. And that may come down to your company, the product, could come down to you as the sales professional. Joe said you would get this and you did not. That's not a good reputation to have. Which brings me to my next point, which is you want to make sure that the buyer understands, the customer understands the offering inside and out to the point where they can hold a conversation with a prospect, the person that you're referring them to, or they're referring you to. And so it's so deep that it's a real conversation. It's more than just surface level. It's not a blanket statement, here's why I like Joe and his product. It becomes, hey, let me tell you about the 3 things I learned by engaging with this product for 3 months. And then it goes deep into multiple levels of analysis and findings such that the person hearing it can engage and say, okay, well, let's stop right here at level 3. And I want to ask you a question that brings us back up to level 2 or takes us down to a different path that we'll call level 4. This is absolutely critical, and it won't happen unless you know that the buyer understands, the customer really understands what it is that they bought. Another thing to consider is if you're going to pull two people together for a solicited reference, is the prospect and the customer connected? In any way, are they in the same network? So for example, if you have a product or a service that services multiple industries, it's applicable to many types of different companies, you've got to be considerate about who you put in front of your prospect. So if you have a prospect that's in retail, you may not want to put a customer who's in manufacturing into a reference call because they may find that it's inapplicable. And of course, it depends on what you sell. But in many cases, industries have very specific needs, regulations they have to manage, etc. And that's why it's considerate of you to make sure that there is a network connection between the buyer and the customer. The next thing is, do you know if they'll actually do it? That's a big deal. When it comes to unsolicited testimonials and referrals, these are the best because you can almost guarantee that if it's a positive one, it's the person does understand what they're talking about, and they're likely speaking directly to their network. And of course, that satisfies the question, will they do it? Because they're actually doing it. Those are huge, but those are very rare. The types of references that you're more likely going to be dealing with are the ones that you set up, which is why we're going through these questions. And it's a poor feeling to ask a customer to do a reference and they say no. Now, of course, they could say no for a number of reasons, but in this sense, if they say no because they don't believe they can give a positive reference, then you have some work to do. Could be a good touch point. That could mean that, okay, good. Now we have something we have to fix. That's a good deal. But if it's something you cannot fix, then that's unfortunate for you, but it's better to know than to be ignorant about it. And then finally, you'd like to know if there's good chemistry. So this is a tough one. It's more about the person themselves who would be giving the reference. Is this the type of person that other people would listen to? I suppose is the way you could ask it. Something you can reflect on when you're considering who to put up against your prospective buyer as a reference. You want to make sure it's somebody who's captivating. It doesn't have to be on a scale of 1 to 10, an 8 or a 9. But you definitely don't want a 1 or a 2 unless you're desperate for a reference. So that's what we study today in terms of testimonials. These are the key aspects of putting your best customers in front of your best prospects to help you close a deal, and I hope you found this valuable. Thank you.